Hello my friends and welcome to JP Gaming Podcast episode number 3. So for today's game that we open up the show with, a little personal favourite of mine, or a bit of a cult classic for me, is a game called Alpha Protocol. It was developed by Obsidian and published by Sega and released in Europe on the May 28th in 2010 on PC, PS3 and Xbox 360. So it was an action RPG that you played in third person. It had a mixture of action and stealth and various different RPG mechanics, and you could tackle the missions in any way you see fit. And the choices that you made directly impacted the narrative. It received mixed reviews upon release, with Eurogamer giving it a 7 out of 10, IGN a 6.3 out of 10, and PC Gamer UK awarding it an 81 out of 100. Me myself, I probably would have given it around about a 7 out of 10. Little bit obscure. I'm not sure how many of you know of this game, but if you're into those sort of games where you can stealth, or you want a bit of choice on how to tackle the missions and it affecting the story with your actions, then give it a go. I'm sure it can be picked up relatively cheap nowadays, but I thought I'd open up with that, as I was a fan and I remember talking about it quite fondly with a friend of mine who played it, and we both had loads of fun playing it. So that is it for today's game. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump into some news, and then after the news I'll have a quick run through of the games that I've been playing. There's been a few this week, so there's a little bit to talk about. We're probably going to have maybe, I don't know, a 20 minutes to a 30-minute podcast. So just as well, I would just like to say that if you do have any questions or any feedback that you want to send, as well as leaving a comment or anything on any of my Instagram or YouTube page, you can also contact me at contactjpgaming@gmail.com, and that's contactjpgaming@gmail.com. And then, of course, any questions that you have, I can always read them out on the podcast, and we can make sure to get them answered. So the first bit of news for this week is probably the biggest piece. There was a Resident Evil showcase during the week. So with that, they showed some gameplay footage of the upcoming Resident Evil Village. They also gave us a release date of May the 7th, and they also put a demo on the PS5. So the demo, I've played it. It's a little 10-minute demo. Now, as far as I'm aware, I don't think it's anything to do with the actual game as such. I think it's a little standalone thing, just to give you an idea. It's a bit of an escape mission. There is no shooting or anything like that in it. It's very light puzzle work, but the lighting looks absolutely amazing on it. The game looks amazing. The atmosphere, as per most Resident Evils, you're kind of always on edge because you never know what's around that corner, what's ready to jump out on you. So I've got to say, I'm quite looking forward to that. I didn't play the previous Resident Evil, so 7 or Biohazard, but it is on PS Plus Collection, which you have access to if you're lucky enough to have a PS5. So I've downloaded it, and I may jump into it because I wasn't sure how I felt about it switching to first person, but everybody says that it works really well. Apparently it works really well for a horror game, so we'll give it a go. I think I'm going to give it a go. I'm not entirely sure how I feel about it, but we will see. We won't know until I jump in. So along with that news, they also announced or showed some footage of a game called Resident Evil Reverse, which is a multiplayer game, and it looks like it's included within Resident Evil. And at the end of the presentation, they also teased the Netflix film, which is due to release at some point this year, but we still don't know a lot about that. So I'm hoping that will be quite good. To be fair, I actually didn't mind the previous Resident Evil films. I took them for what they were, and I quite liked them. So hopefully this will be good. The fact that it's on Netflix, I'm hoping that it will be, but obviously that doesn't mean that it will. And as well as that, although it wasn't shown on the showcase, there is a rumour that a remake of Resident Evil 4 is in development. So that'll be interesting, because obviously Resident Evil 2 was remade and done very well. Resident Evil 3 was then remade, and by all accounts wasn't as good because it was a lot shorter and they missed out quite big chunks of the game. So I never myself played that, but hopefully Resident Evil 4, if a remake's done, hopefully it'll be done well, because I know that's a lot of people's favourites. It's probably one of my favourites, although I am a big fan of number 2, and I also really liked Code Veronica, so Be interesting if they could do a remake of that as well. Actually, I'd like to go back and play that. So that was the first bit of news, and obviously probably the biggest bit of news of the week, because it's a bit dry at the minute with releases and stuff. So there was a new game released this week that was pretty big, and that was Hitman 3. I've not played it. I'm not a huge fan of the Hitman games. I liked Hitman 1 and I liked Hitman 2 back in the day. I played them on PC, but I've kind of just sort of drifted away from them and never really got back into them. I kind of found them a little bit stressful in a sense of I never really knew if I was doing the right path, and I know that's kind of the point of the game, but I was always worried that I was doing something wrong and I was going to have to start from the beginning and do it all over again, and it just never really grabbed me. But I know there's big fans of Hitman out there, and it seems to be doing quite well. It's got a 9 out of 10 on IGN and a 3 out of 5 on Eurogamer, and critic score of 83% on Metacritic with a user score of 7.5. So they're pretty good numbers. So we'll see how that pans out. But I think people are having fun with that game as well. So that's good. It's always good that there's games out there for everyone. In other news, we've got some news that Among Us on the Nintendo Switch in December, so just on the Nintendo Switch and only in December, sold 3.2 million copies, which is absolutely insane. It's crazy how popular that game is and how it's still popular. I know it's died off a little bit, but the game is mad. It is so popular and everyone seems to love it, and it's obviously doing very well on the Switch, and people are just lapping it up with the ability to, obviously, I'm guessing, play on the go and in handheld mode. So absolutely crazy, and the makers of that game are obviously shifting huge numbers, and it doesn't look like that's going to be dropping at any point soon. Speaking of games that don't seem to be dropping at any point soon, Animal Crossing was the number 2 selling game for physical copies in Europe for 2020. Madness how many copies that game sold. I mean, I myself have got it. It's the first Animal Crossing I've played, and I put in a lot of hours in that, especially being in lockdown for big parts of last year and obviously into this year. It was just a bit of a sense of release. It was a nice, chilled, fun game with a lot of charm, so I can see why it's done so well, but that doesn't seem to be slowing down either. And also, again, that's another Switch game. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe was number 3 in Europe, so again another Switch game. So Nintendo there held the number 2 and number 3 spots, and it's not surprising that number 1 was FIFA 21, because obviously football is very popular in Europe. So I myself have got FIFA. I bought that on the PS5, so it's no surprise to see that that's number 1, and obviously it's multi-platform as well. But yep, Nintendo is doing very well in Europe, which I know they're usually, Europe, especially the UK, it's mainly PlayStation, but the Switch is doing very well, and obviously with the games that are set in, is number to that. So the next bit of news that I've got for you involves Microsoft. So there was, I believe, some news come out that they was going to increase the pricing structure for Xbox Live, and I think there was a bit of bad feedback from that and a bit of backlash from that. So they've actually reversed their decision, and they will not be changing the pricing. And they've also announced that free-to-play games that you used to get, they were called free-to-play with Live Gold or something like that, or free gold games, and you needed an Xbox Live Gold membership to have access to them. They've now announced that they're free. They're just free on Xbox. So as long as you have a Xbox Live account, which obviously you need to log into your Xbox, you don't need to pay the subscription. As long as you have the account, you can access the store, and you can download those games and you can play them. So that's actually pretty good, and that's another, anyone who knows me knows I'm not a huge Xbox fan, but Game Pass and now this, it's hard to argue against the Xbox Series S, because it's so cheap and you just have such a wide access of games that, especially for parents who maybe don't have a lot of money to be able to afford to buy games regularly for their children, it is just an absolute no-brainer. And I've not got an Xbox Series. I don't know if I'm going to get an Xbox Series, because thankfully my PC's reasonably powered, and I should be able to play any Microsoft exclusive game on that, albeit without ray tracing or 4K, but that doesn't really matter. for how many of them I'm going to play. But it is such a good deal to turn down that maybe when they drop some more, if they do drop, or when they drop, it might be hard to argue against that. But me being me, I'm probably going to want the Series X, and I can't see that dropping much any point soon, so maybe not. But yeah, great deal there. And obviously, if you've already got an Xbox, it's just another little bonus for you to keep you invested in their ecosystem, which is what they want. They want people signed up to Xbox Live. They want people signed up to Game Pass. I don't think they're particularly worried about shifting consoles so much. Speaking of shifting consoles, here in the UK, Currys had some PS5 stock earlier in the week, and I believe they sold out once again within a matter of minutes. It's unclear how much stock was actually available, and I know there's been some reports that other stores, Argos, Game, Amazon, should be getting some restock soon, but I don't think we know when. But there was a report that I see that apparently 150,000 people accessed Currys to try to buy a console, which is just absolutely crazy. And I think the general belief is a lot of the consoles were snapped up by scalpers and bots again. And I know some companies are putting things in place to stop that, and I think they should. I'm surprised something hasn't been done already. It's morally, it's not right, it's not illegal, but I don't like it because it's taken away from people who actually want the console and fans of the consoles. It's like gig tickets when they get snapped up, and actual fans of the artist or fans of the festival have to pay well over the odds to go and see, and meanwhile the tickets are just being snapped up by automatic bots, and the people who own them just have no love for it at all. It's the same as football games. If a club gets to a cup final, you have people selling cup final tickets for 10 times the price sometimes, and you've got hardcore loyal fans who may never get the chance to see their team in a cup final again, feel like they have to pay £2,000 to buy a ticket. It's madness, and it don't really sit well with me. So hopefully they can stop that across all fronts, but definitely with this PS5, because it's getting a little bit out of control now. I know so many people who want a PS5 and just can't pick one up and it's not through lack of trying, it's just they are selling out within seconds. So something needs to be done, and it also makes me feel quite lucky that I actually managed to get one on release day. So yeah. Next bit of news will be that Activision Blizzard, so they've confirmed that Vicarious Visions, the developer behind Tony Hawk's and Crash Bandicoot, the remastered Crash Bandicoot and Crash Bandicoot 4, is being merged into Blizzard. So it wasn't, I believe it was an Activision studio, but now it's being merged into Blizzard. And apparently the decision to bring them on board into Blizzard is to work on a Diablo 2 remake, which is very interesting. There's not much news other than that, but obviously being a huge PC gamer back in the day, Diablo 2 is a bit of a classic on early Windows systems. It's a classic PC game, and I know Diablo 3 sold pretty well, and it kind of moved away from the formula a little bit. So it'd be interesting to see what they do with the remake, whether they stay true to the original, whether they mix it up, modernise it, maybe make it a bit more like 3, which I'm sure they probably will, seeing as Diablo 3 sold so well. But that will be very interesting. Be looking forward to getting some news on that, and hopefully some footage, and hopefully a release date. I'm sure it's quite a way off if they've only just brought them over, so we'll see what happens there. Speaking of something that's quite a way away, and that might be the next gen versions of CD Projekt Red's Cyberpunk 2077. So obviously there's been loads of bugs with that, and there is a new patch that's just been released this week for PC and consoles, so PlayStation and Xbox. And apparently the patch on their official Twitter stated that it lays the groundwork for upcoming patches, and it's made various improvements with memory usage and systems and character interactions, etc., in-game videos, etc. So there's loads of little improvements there. Apparently it fixes some crashing issues as well. It seems like, I've not played the game myself, but it seems like if you are playing on a base system, especially a base PS4, there's still a lot of work to be done there, which is a shame, because the game itself is actually meant to be very good, but the way they've handled it, the way they handled the press beforehand and the promotion beforehand, feels a little bit like they lied a little bit to me. But I guess there's no really need to go into that because everyone's discussed that massively at length, and it's pretty much done now. And everyone who wanted to play the game on release day has played the game, and they've either kept it and persevered with it and just decided that they're happy with what they've got, and that, you know, maybe they'll finish the game and maybe they'll play it again when it's patched, or they've played it and they've realised actually they've had enough and they've sent it back and got their refund. But when I last checked, I believe it had sold over 13 million copies, so I'm sure that's increased by now, which is just mad considering the game's, you know, it's only been out a little while. So it's, you know, they've made their money, they've made their profit already. I just hope that they do patch it and we do eventually at some point get the game that we saw in the trailers, because it does look very good and I wouldn't mind picking it up at some point, so we will see. And for the last bit of today's news, we've got a Nintendo artist, now excuse my pronunciation, of Takaya Imura, who is the designer and the artist responsible for Captain Falcon and Fox McCloud, and he also came up with the name and the visual identity of the Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. Now he's retired from the company. He's retired from Nintendo, and he'll be moving on and enjoying his retirement, I'm sure. So that's a bit of a loss because obviously those characters there are pretty iconic for Nintendo, and for Nintendo fans like myself, they are big characters. It's a little bit of a shame that he's the designer for Captain Falcon and there hasn't been a new F-Zero for what seems like so long now. Nintendo seems to have just abandoned that, and as I'm sure every other fan of Nintendo is just sitting here hoping to see the day on one of their Nintendo showcases that we see a new F-Zero. I'm sure it would just sell like hotcakes on the Nintendo Switch, because I myself would pre-order and be buying that on day one. So yep, but so that's it for today's news. A little bit of a sad one to end on because see a legend retire, but there you go. So moving in, so where are we up to now? We're up to 17 minutes, so we'll run through the games I've been playing. Probably won't take too long, and then we'll wrap it up to today. So once again, just want to drop that email there, so that's contactjpgaming@gmail.com. That's contactjpgaming@gmail.com. Leave any of your feedback, leave any of your questions there. If there's any requests for what you'd like to see on my YouTube channel, then throw that in there as well, and I'll try to answer or address anything on the podcast that we'll do once a week. Once again, we're just keeping audio for the time being. So in the meantime, please check out the YouTube channel. I'm trying to keep regular content updated once or twice a week. Hopefully you like the videos you've been seeing. Generally at the minute they're kind of let's plays or first plays, with the odd little trophy video thrown in if I come across something that I think may be of use to people that's not just, you know, a pretty standard easy trophy to get. So we'll throw that in there. I've got access to record PC games, my PS5 games, my Nintendo Switch, and some retro systems as well. So throw over any suggestions you got and I'll see what I can do. So games I've been playing. So the game I've been playing the most this week is Immortals Phoenix Rising. Playing some more of that. I mentioned last week that I was playing it, so I've played some more of that and I've actually beat the game. And now I'll be going back to do some more of the side missions and maybe platinum it. It depends on the time I've got. There's still a fair bit of work there, and it's probably going to be a little bit grindy, because you've got to like max out your health, max out your stamina, etc. And I'm a little bit away from them. I've got a couple to go, and to collect the resources needed to do it, it's a little bit grindy. It takes a little bit of time. I didn't really feel the need to have max health or max stamina to beat the game. I felt a little bit overpowered in the end anyway, because I'd leveled up some of my weapons and stuff, so I didn't particularly find it too difficult. I had a pretty good build, so I didn't feel the need to do that. So now I've got a little bit of work left if I want to go ahead and get the platinum, so maybe I will. It's not particularly difficult to platinum, so it's something that I might just sort of work on in the side. If I have a spare half hour here or there that I just feel like jumping on a game, then maybe I'll do that, collect some bits, level up and work towards that final trophy. So that's the game I was playing the most, and along with that I was playing Pikmin 3. So I finally picked that up this week on the Nintendo Switch. Sorry, just to say, I was playing Immortals on the PS5 for those of you that didn't listen last week. So yeah, I was playing some Pikmin 3. I played a demo of that not so long ago, really enjoyed it. Was kind of waiting for a price drop, mostly because of, not because I didn't feel the game was worth full price, but mostly because I was sort of playing for other games. Obviously, I picked up the PS5. I was playing through them. I was playing through Immortals. I was playing through Spider-Man. I was playing some Demon Souls. I was playing some Mario Galaxy as well. Got back onto that. So I didn't really have the time for Pikmin, but I am a big fan of Pikmin 1 and 2. I love them. Never really played 3 on the Wii U. Well, I never played 3 on the Wii U. So I figured now would be a good time to pick it up as I finished Immortals. So I've only done a couple of hours, but I'm having a lot of fun on that. Loads of fun on that. Looking forward to getting back into it and finishing it, and maybe doing some of the side missions that they've thrown in as part of the DLC that was released on the Wii U that's now bundled in with the cartridge. So looking forward to getting back into that. Obviously, it's a charming game, and anyone who's played Pikmin 1 or 2 knows what to expect. If you've got a Nintendo Switch and you're scratching around for a game to play, as I'm sure you're probably not, because there's so many games out on the Switch, but if you are, then give it a go. If you've not played Pikmin before, maybe check out the demo. The demo's free. You've got nothing to lose. I'd like to see it get some more love, because it'd be nice to have a new installment. Obviously, this is a re-release of the Wii U version, so it'd be nice to have a brand new entry in the series. And I'm sure for that to happen, Pikmin 3 needs to sell well. So yeah, go check that out, and let us know what you think. If you do check it out, let us know what you think. I may put a video up at some point as well on my YouTube channel once I get a little bit further in. I might just record some footage, maybe do a boss again. You can go back in and do boss battles, so maybe I'll do one of them again, record a little video and stick it up on the channel. Another game I've been playing, and I say playing, I've done maybe an hour on it, but I jumped very quickly into the Pathless on the PS5, little indie game that I mentioned last week that I was looking forward to getting into. Little puzzle platformer. Not really a platformer, more of a puzzle open world type of game. Looks quite good, looks interesting. Controls take some getting used to, simply because a lot of the moves are very similar to moves that you can do in Immortals, so dodge, dash, glide. And all of the buttons are in different places, so I found myself keep hitting the wrong button combination, which was a little bit frustrating. So I need to get back into that. But now I've done Immortals, the only game I'm really playing properly is Pikmin, so I'll probably stick Pathless next to that, as neither of them are particularly long games, from what I understand. So maybe I'll play them side by side and jump some more into that next week. So maybe I can report more on it on next week's podcast. Another game that I played was just a tiny little one. So not so long ago, well, last year, I picked up Evercade, which is a little retro handheld console, and they released cartridges. So it runs off emulation, but all the stuff's officially licensed, all the games are officially licensed, and I think they're up to maybe 17 cartridges or something like that now. They do, like, there's an Atari one, they've got a Worms coming out, and there is an Oliver Twins cartridge. So obviously, being a bit of a Nintendo fan, loving the NES, as that was my first system, Oliver Twins are responsible for the Dizzy games. So obviously I picked up the Oliver Twins cartridge, and on there's a game called Dream World Pogi, which is a game that they Kickstart funded, and it met its backing, and I think the game was, as far as I'm aware, the game was released, and it was a Nintendo NES game that they released, I think it was a few years ago. So it's a new Nintendo NES game, and that's on the Oliver Twins cartridge for Evercade, and that is a little simple platformer. You go through the levels and you collect stars, and when you get 100 stars you get a life. But it's just a platformer game. You reach the end of the level, you move on to the next one. I think there's around 15 levels in total, so I beat that because it's not very long, and I sort of just done a few levels here or there. I was kind of just playing it just before I went to bed of a night. Little thing to play just to kind of chill you out before you go to sleep. Very fun, very charming game. Big fan of old style NES platformers, so jumped straight into it, picked up where I left off on Mario Bros, and was flying through them without too much difficulty. It's not particularly a hard game. There are some bits that are challenging, but the number of lives you get is quite generous if you work your way through and collect all of the stars. So that's definitely one worth checking out for fans of retro games, for fans of old school platformers. Check that out. As you say, you can get it on Evercade. You can also get it on the NES. I don't think you can get the cartridges anymore, so they'll probably be reasonably expensive if you look on eBay or whatever. So check out the Evercade. It's a good little handheld console. There's something on there for everyone. There will be a game that every single person likes. There is a game for everyone on it. The cartridges themselves are only around £15, so they're not cheap. Sorry, so they're not expensive, they're fairly cheap. So pick them up and check that out. If anyone's not heard of it, have a little look. There's YouTube reviews and etc. out, so have a look and see what you think. And the final game I've been playing is a little game called Shift Happens, and that's a little co-op puzzle kind of platformer game. So I've been playing that with my girlfriend, and we've done the first room, or the first sort of world you like. That's got 8 levels in it and a couple of bonus levels. We need to do the bonus levels, but that's a little game where you work together and you can switch between being small and large, and you can push and you can pull objects and you can throw your partner into other areas of the level to access switches to get you through, and then you can collect stars through the level, and as you collect stars, the more stars you collect, the more you level up at the end to give you lives. And there's hidden stars in every level, so you need to try and find the little hidden area to get the final batch of stars. So that's a fun game. It's quite casual, so for anyone there who's looking for something maybe to play with their partner, that's a good game to do. It's quite, we've not found it particularly difficult at the moment. There's a couple of challenging pieces, but generally once you've worked out how to do the puzzle, then you do it. There's not a lot of, you don't need to be particularly skilled at platforming or anything like that. It's just working out how to do the puzzle, doing the things that allow you to beat the puzzle, and then you move on to the next level. So it's quite good. You do have to work together, you have to talk, you have to work. So it's a good little bonding game there for anyone who's looking for something to play. I'd imagine you could also have a lot of fun with your friends as well. So check that out. I was playing that on Nintendo Switch. I think the game's quite old. I don't think it's particularly new, but we picked it up in a sale not so long ago. So had a little bit of fun playing that. Looking forward to jumping into some more of that and working our way through and hopefully beating it. For anyone who's played Ibanob, it's sort of similar, but a little bit less platformy and more puzzly than Ibanob. So that's it for today's games. That's it for this week's games that I've been playing, and that's it for this week's news and indeed this week's podcast. So we're at about 30 minutes, I believe. We're coming up to 30 minutes. So I hope you enjoyed what you heard. Obviously, once again, please check out my YouTube channel. Leave us a sub if you haven't already. It would mean the world to me if you could leave me a sub, as I'm trying to grow the channel, grow the community. So interact, please leave a comment, drop us an email. I want to interact with all you guys and girls, and I want to get a good little fun community going, and hopefully that's something good. So I think that will be it for this week. So you enjoy the rest of your day, enjoy the rest of your week until we speak again next. Hope you have some fun playing some games, pick up some new games, check out some of the recommendations I've give if you're looking for new stuff to play. And that will be it for today's podcast. So until next time, I will see you next week. And this was JP Gaming, and we are out.